The iPhone SE has been around since early 2016 and is essentially just a smaller iPhone 6S. And like the 6S, it's one of the oldest devices capable of running iOS 13. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and today, now that iOS 13 is coming out, we're talking about the iPhone SE again and whether or not it's worth buying in late 2019. Literally for years, the iPhone SE has been my go-to recommendation when it comes to picking up a smartphone, more specifically iPhone, but honestly smartphone in general. These have always been very good value. It's always been cheap, and now it's only getting cheaper. Often found easily under $100, both used and refurbished on eBay.com. That's a very killer deal for, frankly, an underrated smartphone that is completely capable of running iOS 13. Not only does the SE run iOS 13 right now, which means at least a full another year of software support, but honestly, I think it'll get 14. I think this is a capable phone, and I'd be a little surprised if the SE didn't get iOS 14. But there aren't any guarantees of that, so let's back up here and talk about the design of the iPhone SE. The iPhone SE brings the design of the iPhone 5S, looking exactly the same except for the rose gold color. The SE is also available in space gray, silver, and gold, so there's something here for everyone. Just make sure you get a 32GB or better model, as the 16GB ones are just too small nowadays. 16 gigs will barely fit any photos and apps, so trust me when I say at least 32 gigs is what you want. You won't regret it if you're looking to pick one up. The iPhone 5, 5S, and SE have always been some of my favorite designs when it comes to iPhones. They're just so classy, with a premium aluminum enclosure with glass antenna bands on the top and bottom. While the back looks great, some may take issue with the front of the SE for a couple reasons. First, it looks like your classic iPhone with the home button that gives you first generation Touch ID. First gen Touch ID feels slow nowadays, but it's usable, and at least it's better than always putting in your passcode. The second issue is that this phone only does have a 4-inch display. This is a very small phone, and that's not going to appeal to everyone. As someone who's been mainly using the iPhone XS over the last year, going back to the SE is quite a bit of an adjustment, but after a bit of use, I get somewhat used to it, and while I would prefer a bigger phone, it is absolutely usable. I can also see the appeal of a small display. A small display means that you can do everything with one hand, and that's something that's not nearly as possible with the newer iPhones. Another benefit of it being small is that it's both very thin and very light. This is the lightest iPhone ever, and you can definitely feel it when you're holding it in your hand. It's very nice to hold. The screen might be small, but it looks really good being Retina, so everything will appear crisp and sharp. This is essentially the same display quality as in the iPhone XR and 11, and although some people complain about those phones, the truth is they're absolutely fine and actually look pretty good. The iPhone SE is again capable of running iOS 13, and although at the time of this video iOS 13 hasn't officially dropped, I am running the final beta version, so this is essentially what you'll experience once iOS 13 goes live. It runs surprisingly well, like really well actually. This phone doesn't feel like it's at the bottom of the tier list when it comes to supported iPhones, but it is, and that's why I think it'll get iOS 14. It's more than capable of running iOS 13, so I don't see why Apple would end support early. I also wanted to mention how much dark mode changes the feel of this device. It looks beautiful, and it makes the whole experience just feel fresh and modern and like something new. If you have an iPhone SE right now, it's going to feel like a completely different phone once you get iOS 13 and switch over to dark mode. On the bottom of the phone, we have the headphone jack, which I'm sure lots of you will like to hear. This phone is not water resistant, so make sure you don't drop it into the toilet, not because it's not water resistant, but because dropping it into the toilet would be disgusting. The camera on the back of the phone is pretty darn decent, with 12 megapixels and the ability to shoot 4K in 30 frames per second. I've always been impressed by the SE's camera. It isn't the best anymore and can't really compare to the newer iPhones, but it holds its own, and it's more than good enough for taking photos of your family or the outdoors or really whatever you want to do. I'll show some photos in a moment, but first let's go over the selfie camera. The selfie camera is a bit, horrible. It has 1.2 megapixels, and you can tell. Here I'll show a selfie of me. This is an early 2010s quality camera, not one that should have appeared on a 2016 iPhone camera. That being said, I doubt you're too worried about selfies, and when it comes to like FaceTime or whatever, it's gonna be fine. It's functional, and that's what matters, even if it functions poorly. But enough of the selfie camera, now I'll put up some photos for you to judge for yourself. technical specs follow a similar trend to what we've seen so far. They're surprisingly good. The iPhone SE has the same internals as the iPhone 6s, Apple's A9 chipset, and 2GB of RAM. This might not sound impressive, especially the 2GB of RAM part, but again, it's quite capable of running pretty much everything smoothly, including iOS 13. I'm not saying you'll never have slowdowns, because let's be real, you will, but for me at least they've been few and far between, and the SE will provide a mostly reliable and consistent experience. This phone isn't super fast, but it is fast enough to do pretty much anything you want it to do. There are some nitpicks I could make about the iPhone SE. The haptics are bad, like really bad. They're the same as the iPhone 6 and are reminiscent of the old iPhone 4 and 4S. And when I say haptics, I mean vibrations. And basically, newer iPhones are really good at subtly like poking you almost when it comes to vibrations, as opposed to like the classic bus kind of noise that it makes when it vibrates on some of the older phones. You can hear it if I do this. So not great, but let's be real, it's not going to have that much impact on your daily life. The speaker on the iPhone SE is terrible. There's only one little speaker on the bottom, and you can tell when you listen to anything. Some might say that's a worthy trade for the headphone jack, and yeah, that might be fair, but the speaker is still pretty bad. There are more nitpicks, but I'm not going to go over them because they're exactly that, nitpicks. They really aren't indicative of the overall experience, and when you're only paying around $100, there's not a lot of room for complaining. Not only is this phone solid, it's at an amazing value right now, and if you don't have a phone or are on something older, the SE is not only a great choice, but it's the choice if you want an iPhone. If you're more interested in the Android side, the first Google Pixel is a great choice, as it's not much more than the SE and is also getting another year of support. But if you're an iPhone person, you can't go wrong with the SE. You do have to be careful about the battery. The sad truth is that these phones are old, and so a lot of the SEs being sold are going to have well-used batteries, which may cause your phone to slow down or cause unexpected shutdowns. But if you find one in good shape, it's probably fine, and you can always just get the battery replaced by Apple if you really need to. While you can still find these from carriers once in a while, I wouldn't recommend doing that because the iPhone SE is so cheap on eBay. You can find it online for less than $100, and then you're not locked to a 2-year plan. You have some freedom there. Both used and refurbished models are around $80 to $100 to be more specific, although if you look around hard enough, you should find a deal even better than that. When it comes to pure value on the iPhone side, I don't think you can beat the iPhone SE. Both the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, as well as the iPhone 11 and to a lesser extent the iPhone XR, are pretty good value, but you get really close to the experience you'd have on those phones with the $100 iPhone SE. And for most people, close is going to be enough. It isn't going to be the best possible experience on iOS, but the savings you get, I think, outweighs any potential negatives. So is the iPhone SE still worth buying in late 2019? Somehow, yes. If you're a person who prefers small phones, this is the obvious choice. Or if you're a person on a strict budget, or need a backup phone, or whatever, again, this is a really great phone, and I would totally recommend picking it up. As said before, it's reliable, it's consistent, it's solid, and when it comes to a smartphone, that's really all you need. Now quickly before we wrap this review up, I did want to talk about current rumors of a second iPhone SE coming out. We've had these for literally years now, and obviously they've never come true, but they are worth mentioning, and who knows, maybe it could happen. So at the moment, there have been rumors of next year, a sub $400 phone could come out. If this happened, I would assume it would happen in March, and it would probably be about as big as the iPhone 8 at 4.7 inches. Now personally, will this happen? I don't really see why it would, considering the iPhone 8 is still available for sale, and it starts at I believe about $450 already, so I don't know why they would make a phone that looked like the iPhone 8 but costed less. So maybe the year after, but even if something does happen, I would still recommend just buying an iPhone SE right now if you're interested. Yes, something new could come out, but it is going to be significantly more. The iPhone SE right now is at a price that you just can't fight. It's a really good deal, so regardless of rumors, I would ignore them and just go for it if you're interested. The iPhone SE is a great phone, and I really like it, and I think you will too. And with that, I'm pretty much done here. I know I did a review on the iPhone SE earlier this year, but with iOS 13 coming out, I felt like it changed the phone enough that it warranted another video, and so I did one. It's a great phone, and again, really would recommend buying it if you need a cheap phone. It's hard to argue with that price tag. But do you have an iPhone SE? How's it working for you? Let me know in the comments down below. If you found this video interesting or helpful, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at 91_tech if you'd like to for some reason. And with that all being said, I'm Josh from 91tech, and I will see you all next time.